For me, success was just hearing my record on the radio. Now, when we get to the money part, success was having a Mercedes Benz, having some gold chains on my neck, having fresh sneakers on my feet. It was really simple because you're talking about a 16-year-old. Back then, it was really just about being able to buy the clothes you want, the car you want, and go and eat where you want. It was pretty basic. I wasn't yet at that level of thinking about sophisticated investment strategies. And so funny, I had a friend who used to always talk to me about, oh man, you should just get a nice Magellan fund, right? Like he was like the one guy in the neighborhood who was like kind of smart. And I used to be looking at him like a deer in the headlights, like, yo, dude, I don't know what you're talking about.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Crazy Money. This is your host, Paul Ollinger, but you knew that. It is a great day to be alive. I hope you're making the most out of these 24 hours you've been given. If you're not, get with it. Let's go. I've got a great treat to share with you today, and it's a special day because it's our 100th episode of Crazy Money. Let me be more specific. It is our 100th unique original interview on Crazy Money. We've run some a couple of times to help people catch up with the back catalog, but today is 100, and we've got about as special guest as you could think of to help us celebrate. Today, I'm joined by none other than hip-hop icon, producer, actor, and entrepreneur LL Cool J. He joined to tell us a little bit about his career and the motivation and character that has helped him succeed throughout 36 years of being on top. He brought with him his trademark charm, candor, and positivity. I know you're going to feel better about yourself and about life in general after you listen to this interview. I'll get to it in just a second. Hey, if you're new to Crazy Money, let me tell you what it's about. I've been making this show for 2 years, and I do it because after a lifetime of thinking that I would become somebody when I made a little bit of money, I did make some money, and I started making bad decisions. I quit my job, didn't really get after the passions I had always had, even though I had the opportunity, and I just felt like a bored loser. I was surprised by that, so I did a lot of research. I read all these books. I studied the Stoics, the Buddhists, the Gospels, the Susie Ormans, everybody I could. And I was like, hey, there's a lot of assumptions we make about money in lives, that more is always better, that we'll feel totally fulfilled when we finally make it. And that ends up not to be true. And so I wanted to explore that. And in 100 episodes, I've talked to leading academics, authors, journalists, everyday people like my dad, my wife, friends who have had really unique money journeys. And we dive in to the connection between money, happiness, work, and meaning right here on Crazy Money. Previous guests include Nobel Prize winners, Olympic gold medalists, winner of the PGA Championship, the Heisman Trophy, all kinds of really interesting, special people. So go ahead and subscribe to the show or follow us, depending upon what the option is on the app that you're listening to us on today, so that you can hear more great conversations coming forward in the future. I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm happy to announce that comedy is slowly reawakening. It's crawling out from underneath its COVID rock, and it's looking left and looking right, praying there's not predators circling it in the sky that are going to come down and grab it in its greedy talons and feed it to its babies somewhere up in the trees. But it's coming out slowly. I've got shows coming up at the Laughing Skull Lounge, March 19th through 21st. These are going to be meaningfully socially distanced, people wearing masks, and about 20 people in an 80-seat club. So be sure to go to laughingskulllounge.com right now, well, not right now, after this interview, to get your tickets to go see that show. I'm going to be getting the vaccine in my arm as soon as I possibly can. And after that, I'm going to be getting after comedy pretty aggressively. Hey, there might be a pop-up show in Park City, Utah next week. I don't have the details yet, but I hope to have them in the next 24 hours. And if I get them, I will post them in the Crazy Money Listeners group on Facebook. Speaking of which, you should join that group. Go to Facebook and Google Crazy Money. Do you Google inside of Facebook? I guess you don't. You search inside of Facebook. Search for Crazy Money Podcast Listeners, and you'll be taken to the group. Join that thing, and you'll be the first to see when I have a show in Park City, Utah, if it happens. Speaking of which, I want to welcome new members of that group: Phyllis Anderson, Rebecca May, Christine Burton, Tim Elze, not to be confused with Tim Kaze, Steph Wilson, hello Steph, and Marie Lim. Thank you so much for joining. Look forward to staying in touch with you. If you would rather stay in touch in private, that sounded weird. I didn't mean it like that. You can email me at paul@crazymoneypodcast.com. Let's talk about the value of friendship. This interview is happening today because my old buddy, Howie Stein from my launch.com days, pre-Yahoo, works on the fabulous team over in LL's camp. I want to send a special thanks to my friend Howie, who connected me with LL's team, including Claudine and AJ. Thank you so much for making this happen. I appreciate it greatly. Speaking of launch, I had another great long conversation with another launch.comer recently, Eric Hawkins. We talked about the possibilities for this program, and he made a great suggestion. He's like, why don't you talk more about what you're for on the show? And why not do that right now? I'm going to be working on the Crazy Money Manifesto and feeding bits of it into each individual program. And so here's the first one. Here's what I'm for. I'm for success. But success doesn't mean just making as much money as possible. First of all, success does mean financial freedom. You have to have achieved financial autonomy before you can pursue your own self, right? And I am for, speaking of which, the pursuit of self-actualization. Being you and the process of working on becoming you is the most important work you can engage in. You can't do it if you're buried in bills. You can't do it if you're only working to maximize wealth. And you can't do it if you've crippled yourself with material goods and obsessions that take up your energy and time. That's what I'm for. I'm for all of us trying to find out the best person we can be in whatever way that manifests. Now, a lot of people can do that in the working world. I see a lot of people that I admire and love working hard to manifest their personal gifts through leadership in the corporate world, and that's fine. I didn't find that to be the case for me. I didn't feel like that environment allowed me to grow in the direction I wanted to. And I thought of that when I was reading this article in the New Yorker. Because I'm so smart and sophisticated, I read the New Yorker. But it was with the incredibly talented Donald Glover, the actor, musician, comedian Donald Glover. And he said, authenticity is the journey of finding out who you are through what you make. It's the journey of finding out who you are through what you make. And I believe that when you listen to an artist like LL Cool J, why his spirit resonates with you, why the music moves you, is because it is a representation of what's inside him. It is the natural charisma that comes, as Simon Sinek says, from a clarity of why, from playing the game from the inside out, from not worrying about critics, from not worrying about not being perfect, from doing the best job you can, no matter where you are on your creative journey. So that's why people love artists like LL Cool J. To say nothing about the fact that he's, as I said before, just a font of motivation and positivity. And these things are directly related to his success, as you'll hear early in our conversation, what it was like and what he was prioritizing early in his career. And I'll remind you, this is at the tender age of like 16, 17 years old, how to define success in the true sense of the word. Let me tell you about him, because nobody works harder than LL Cool J. The musician, producer, actor, and entrepreneur has been playing at the highest levels of art, business, and culture since he burst onto the scene at the age of 17 in 1985. For over 35 years, LL has pushed himself to achieve in all that he does while leading with spirit and character. And achieve he has. The two-time Grammy Award winner and first ever hip-hop Kennedy Center honoree has recorded 14 studio albums, landing massive hits, including Going Back to Cali, Mama Said Knock You Out, Rock the Bells, and many, many more. As an actor, he's played Sam Hanna on NCIS Los Angeles for the last 12 years, appeared in hit films like In Too Deep, Any Given Sunday, and Wildcats, and starred in the NBC sitcom In the House. In this, the 100th original interview of Crazy Money, LL shares what he really wanted when he released his first record, how he approaches potential business deals, and why he pours his soul into Rock the Bells, his company that elevates timeless and classic hip-hop culture by celebrating MCs, DJs, breakdancers, and graffiti artists on its website, the link to which you can find in the show notes. And LL also created and curates programming for the radio channel of the same name. That's Rock the Bells on Sirius XM Channel 43. So after you listen to this great interview with LL Cool J, turn your car satellite radio to Channel 43 and rock some bells. Ladies and gentlemen, this is LL Cool J. LL Cool J, welcome to Crazy Money.
What's up? What's up? What's going on? How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, and I appreciate you being here. We're about the same age. Let's go back to 1984. I'm 15 years old. I'm wearing braces and getting my butt kicked at freshman football practice. I can barely even look girls in the eye at this point. I know I want to, but I can't quite do it. What's going on in your life that year?
Oh, 84. Well, 84 was the year when I put my first single out. So during the early part of 84, I was just really working on trying to get a deal and trying to make that happen. By mid 84, somewhere along there, I had ended up linking up with Rick Rubin. I was sending demos out everywhere during that time. And Ad Rock from the Beastie Boys heard my demo. He played it for Rick Rubin and they thought it was good. So Rick gave me a call. I ended up getting with Rick and, the rest is history, man. The label Def Jam was formed. He had a production company already. That's how I knew to send him a demo. They had a single on the Party Time label called It's Yours. I copied down that address and that number, sent the tape in, and here we are.
What kind of a 16-year-old has the gumption to think that he can make a living as a musician?
You know, it's funny, man. To be quite honest, I was always ambitious and I always wanted to live well on some level, and I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. But the goal wasn't just money. The goal was really for my voice to be heard and for me not to be just another invisible guy, living in Queens. And, I had a mother who always told me I could do anything I put my mind to. I had a grandmother who reinforced those same values. And so I had no fear. And, I've always been fearless about going after my dreams. And at the end of the day, man, it's better to just go after your dreams. If they come true, great. And if they don't, at least you ain't taking them to the grave with you. You did your best. So that's what I did. You know what I'm saying? I just went all out.
So I read a quote from you that says the only thing that keeps you from your dreams is fear. Were you afraid of anything when you were 16 years old?
Yeah, I was afraid of not going after my dreams.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was afraid of just kind of, like I said, just being invisible, just being in that world of gunshots, stick up kids, drug dealers, and nothing else. Cutting school, smoking weed, and just wasting your life away. As my grandmother would say, rocking your life away, sitting in a chair, that's what I didn't want to be. I just didn't want to be that guy. I felt like there had to be more to life than that. And obviously in this country, that's like you're starting in the negative, right? So we got to climb out of that. We got to get to an even playing field. We got to commence the race. So it was kind of like, you're already being lapped in life. You know what I'm saying? So you just got to go get it.
But, you can do that if you go get a degree in accounting. That's one way to achieve financial autonomy and independence as a young person in America. But you back then said, I'm going to go all in, all out. In your wildest dreams, what would you have described as success looking like when you were that age?
Let me just say this. I think about the accounting thing. The reality is that autonomy? It can be if you start your own firm. It may not be if you choose to work for somebody and you just end up in a cubicle, right? So it all depends. Or now just working remotely in your house
right.
The rest of your life for some guy's organization counting his money. It's not necessarily the kind of autonomy I was looking for, right? I know what you mean, though. I know exactly what you mean. Just kind of be safe, go to rent. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that.
In your wildest dreams, when you're 15, 16 years old, before you get your deal, what would you think okay, that is success? 10 years later, was it $1 million? Was it?
No. For me, success was just hearing my record on the radio. Now, when we get to the money part, success was having a Mercedes Benz, having some gold chains on my neck, having fresh sneakers on my feet. In those days, a new VCR. Today would probably be an iPhone and a laptop. Just having a new Mac and a new phone. And it was really simple because you're talking about a 16-year-old, right?
Sure, yeah.
So I got my first advance. I bought my mother a car, right? And I just got myself some jewelry and some trinkets, sneakers and stuff like that. When I got a little bit more money, I bought my mother a house and just stayed in the basement. Then I bought myself a car. So I've always kind of looked out for my mom. But success was just, back then, it was really just about being able to buy the clothes you want, the car you want, and go and eat where you want. It was pretty basic. I wasn't yet at that level of thinking about sophisticated investment strategies. And I had a friend who used to, so funny, I had a friend who used to always talk to me about, oh man, you should just get a nice Magellan fund, right? He was like the one guy in the neighborhood who was kind of smart. And I used to be looking at him like a deer in the headlights, yo, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. All I know is I'm getting a car and I'm putting these chains on my neck. You talking to me about a Magellan fund? That meant nothing to me. He might as well have been speaking some obscure dialect in Scandinavia somewhere. I knew nothing about what he was saying. As you grow and as you learn and as you stay curious, you realize that there are different moves that you can make and different things that can happen. But you also, quite frankly, have to be blessed enough or lucky enough, depending on how you see the world, to get enough bites at the apple to actually do the right thing. Especially if you're not coming from a family environment where people are accustomed to having some money, accustomed to making sophisticated investment decisions.
Did you make big mistakes with money when you first started making some?
Not really. No massive blunders. I mean, I overspent a little bit and, had to play catch up, and I was on extension and I played a little bit of that game, the extension game, but nothing really, really crazy. I never lived above my means. I never bought like more house than I needed. I probably bought a few more cars than I needed, but that wasn't catastrophic. You know what I mean? In terms of the actual raw numbers that I was spending. So I did all right.
What was harder to handle, the money or the attention as a 16, 18, 19-year-old when you've got platinum records, you're on TV all the time? How'd you deal with all that?
That's an interesting question. I would say the money is probably a little bit harder to deal with because a certain amount of money is easy to deal with, right? But when you get to that point where you have like gold digging receptionists calling you up saying, hey, don't tell anybody, but if you're really good, you can get a Rolls Royce. And you're looking at the phone like, why would I want a Rolls Royce? Like, you don't know that you're not old enough yet to understand that this 30-something-year-old is like seeing you as a big fish. You know what I mean? Like, so the money is probably a little tougher in that instance. The attention can be really tough depending on what your family life and your home life is like, right? But all money and the fame is going to do is show people more of who you are, right? Like, it's the biggest exclamation mark in the world. It puts you on front page, center stage of your universe, and people get to see your character. So for me, the money generosity wasn't an issue. I never really been the selfish kind of guy. So I never wore the money on my sleeve, even to this day. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. But that's not what walks in the room before me. Like, it's kind of like I let my spirit and my character lead. My mother would tell me, Todd, girls don't like dummies. And she'd tell me, drugs ruin careers. My mother was like a psychologist, and I'm still 16, 17. So I'm listening. And I happen to be a kid that really listened to their parent. Like, I really actually listened to my mother and my grandmother and them for the most part. I like actually listen. So I'd be like, oh, okay, I hear you. And I just have that. And then you bump into good people along the way, like members of hip hop groups who are a little older, who might have been involved in some things and like said, nah, El, this ain't for you. And they would kind of put their hand out and give me the Heisman Trophy pose at those moments when I wanted to indulge. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So that's part of it. I got to give them credit too.
So that was where I was going to go with the next question. As I was reading up on your background and reminding myself of all the records you put out, I'm looking at the early days of Def Jam and I'm learning about artists who released 1 or 2 records and were never heard from again. Was that wisdom and groundedness what kept you in the game all those years?
I got to tell you, Russell used to tell me, he used to have this statement, like when I make a big mistake, like a couple of times I missed video shoots and was out all night or hanging out.
It happens.
Like, and he'd be like, it's your career. And there was something about it's your career that really had a lot of gravity with me because I realized that this was an opportunity. And the more I did it, the more gravity it had. Like, I used to ride by the high school at the beginning of my career and say, oh, I can still go back and be driving. And then, oh, I can still go back. And then one year I was like, yo, I'm actually too old to be in there now. Focus on this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like, I just learned that if you're going to have a career, you got to care about it, man. You got to care about it, and you got to be hungry, and you got to be ambitious, and you got to continue to dream. You have to continue to dream. You have to continue to dream, and you got to be trustworthy, and you got to be able to trust yourself. But the one thing that I also never did was I didn't approach the world of business in a Machiavellian way. Sometimes that's the safest space to be in because, a lot of times the schemers just end up overthinking themselves and they end up just self-destructing anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's like Machiavelli, that whole style of thinking is like a recipe for disaster long-term. You've never seen anyone who wins at it long-term, ever. They always end up self-destructing. It's just like a Roman candle. So just being trustworthy and trying to do right by people kind of works. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that you got to be an idiot. I've done bad deals. I've done things that I wish I did better deals. So I'm not saying be foolish and just give away the store. I'm saying But as you're doing business, you can have some character. And if you say you're going to do something, do it. And if you're not going to do it, don't agree to it. And I still move like that. And see, I can move like that if I'm hanging out with my billionaire friends. I could do that with my VC friends. I could do that with dudes right in the hood. I'm the same guy, no matter who I'm talking to. So I think that's important too. And I learned that, coming up as a young kid, just being around hustlers, because people, this is a Crazy Money podcast. So, people that watch this podcast understand VCs, they understand angel investors, they understand scaling businesses, they understand a lot of sophisticated topics. But one thing about the street, you need integrity, right? And if you give somebody your word, you keep it. And guess what? That idea, that principle travels through at all levels, in any room. I don't care what room you walk in. I don't care if we're talking about putting 400 million in, 50 million, or 50,000, or 500. Keeping your word is part of it. So that's what I've tried to do along the way, especially, when you think about all the opportunities that you have to wipe people out. And I just try to do right by people, give them their credit, give them their publishing. And then you can do tough deals. You can make strong deals. You should make deals that are win-win, but they should really be win-win.
Meaning you want people that you do business with to want to come back and do business with you again, not just because you're LL Cool J, but because it was a good deal and it was a life-affirming way to work with good people and produce a good result.
100%. And I think, look, I can get in a lot of rooms with the name, but the character is what's going to keep you there. And it's results, which is going to solidify those relationships and allow you to keep going and moving forward. I can get a lot of meetings, but what does that mean? It's like, I want to deliver. I don't walk around the world of finance trying to talk people out of money. If I do business with someone, I'm doing it with them because I want us both to win. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to get from house to house or from car to car based on grifting and playing games. No, but a lot of people, a lot of times people do live in that space. I'm trying to actually deliver. My goal is to deliver for the people that I do business with. So that's part of it. And you got to have, I think, a higher purpose than just money. Like, there's nothing wrong with crazy money, but crazy money comes after crazy success. We know LeBron is wealthy now. We know Jordan is wealthy now. But how many jump shots did they take in the driveway? And how hard did they work in high school? And how hard did they work in the gym? So the crazy money, crazy success is the precursor to crazy money, especially if you wanted to have it long term. You don't just skip and go right to the Super Bowl trophy. Like Tom Brady, he's talking about pliability and keeping his body right and staying right. Then we get to the money, right? So I kind of look at things in that space as well.
Yeah, Brady eats better and stretches more than me, so I can't worry about all the Super Bowl trophies I don't have in my house, right? I mean, that's...
Exactly. Somebody wrote a quote today. It was great. It said, don't complain about the things you didn't have because of the work you didn't do.
Right. I'd say it's like 1% God's fault for not giving me his arm, and then like 99% my fault for, eating Twinkies for most of my life.
You know what I mean? There you go.
Did you have a sense of how amazing the opportunity you had was? And did that help you manage the trajectory you're on to do the right things in the business of music and the business of film and TV at the right times? Did you have a sense of where you wanted to go and which were the steps to take at those respective times?
I think the real answer is that yes, with an asterisk. Yes, meaning it wasn't so much a product of education as it was just instinct. Instinct can take you a long way. I don't care how smart and how great you are as a hunter. You can wrap circles around me as a hunter. But if my instincts tell me that I shouldn't go over that hill and I don't, and you do, and a bear eats you, I'm good. So I think Napoleon Bonaparte had a great quote. He said, he'll take a lucky general over a talented one any day, right? And so having the courage to follow your instincts, I think is very, very important, especially when we talk about this area, right? Because finance is an area where people have a tendency to be hyper conservative or just like all out crazy, super risk it all, right? But a lot of times it's a really cerebral process, or they're kind of risking it. But a lot of times people are not necessarily following their instinct and their intuition. As I was going throughout my career, so I'll give you an example of an instinctual decision that turned out to be a great business decision. I'm sitting with a guy and we're talking about me recording a new album. A part of this new album is they're going to give me an advance, would be a nice sum of money. to begin the process and to kind of get rolling, and they open up your budget. I put money in my pocket. It's a great moment. Like, artists love it, right? At that time, it was a sizable amount for me at that time. And so when I asked him about, I'd like to get in advance, get rolling, he starts doing this. And I'm sitting there, and something told me right at that moment. I said, oh, I see how this is. My very next phone call, I'm on the phone with Quincy Jones talking about, yo, what's up with some TV? Like, because he had kind of been broaching the idea to me. Let's do some TV. So me, Quincy Jones, David Solomon, rest in peace, we out there and we end up with a TV show in the house, because instinctually I knew that I was about to be a prisoner of this industry and a prisoner of this exec in his mind, his whims. I'd be at his whim because of the way he so that's an instinctual decision, right? But it ended up being a good thing, because now, many years later, when I look at the passive part of my income, not the aggressive, but the passive part of my income, a lot of it is because of those decisions.
Well, you said something earlier that I think speaks deeply to the orientation you had. You said you weren't interested so much about the money that you could get from a record when you were a teenager. You wanted your voice to be heard. Those are very different things. And my theory, working on becoming a working stand-up comedian for 8 years of my life, the theory that if anybody's in the arts to try to make money, they're in it for completely the wrong reasons. If you're not in it for the idea that you can express whatever is inside you, then you're going to quit so much earlier than the money ever has a chance to show up, that you might as well just not even start. Right? So your instinct that you're in it to express yourself is very different than I'm in it for the bling, I'm in it for the Benzes and all that kind of stuff. And that's a long-term attitude. And the same could be said for business. If somebody's in it to get the short-term buck, they're going to do things that will make other people on the other side of the deal never want to do business with them again.
100%. And obviously there are some ways you can distinguish it, but be clear. Like, I have absolutely been doing business since 1984. A lot of times people, because you're an artist, they think, okay, well, you've been an artist since 1984. And maybe in some cases, but any artist that has longevity, that's been doing it a long time, you're doing business. And you have to make the same type of decisions that anybody would make, whether it's staffing, personnel, hiring the right people with the right domain expertise in the right areas of the business. It's business, right? Tour decisions, promoter decisions. Are you pricing yourself out of the market? Are you selling yourself short? I mean, there are no differences, right? When a mistake happens, you have to pivot, you have to adjust. But the thing is, you're right. It wasn't because I wanted to be looked at as some cool businessman. As a matter of fact, I've talked about this much less than some of my counterparts. The business part of LL Cool J is not really something that people are really aware of like that. They kind of just take me as a famous guy, not for granted, but kind of that's LL and that's what he does and he's kind of here. I don't think they necessarily see the decision-making process and what it has taken for me to go from 1984 to 2021 and be at either a greater height in different mediums and kind of just what that entails. So it is business, right? But you're right. You got to be passionate about it. You got to care about it. Like, I started my company, Rock the Bells. I'm passionate about it, but I'm doing it for my love of the culture and my love for all of these other artists that put their time and their talents into this culture and what we built, right? Because I don't want 300-400 years from now for guys to be forgotten. I don't want people to look at this as some kind of fly-by-night thing that came and went, and the only people that are remembered are like 5 guys that were really popular at the height of the internet, and everybody else is forgotten. Because it's all about timing, right? It's not only what you did, it's when you do it and who witnessed it and how it was kind of chronicled and kind of framed and boxed for the world. So I think that Rock the Bells and dealing with classic hip hop, dealing with this timeless culture, that's something that I can do that I'm really passionate about, and I'm finding out ways to do it.
So Rock the Bells is your website that includes content about art, culture, hip hop, Black literature, commerce. It's a beautifully curated fashion site. Is that the culmination of all the things you care about brought to one place? I mean, besides your family and that kind of stuff.
It's content, commerce, and experiences, right? The site is a home, but we extend beyond that, right? It's not just about a site. It really is a direct-to-consumer company that really focuses on hip-hop culture, and we are tapped into the biggest and most important classic hip-hop artists in the world, and they all are very supportive of what we're doing. I've given some equity in the company. I've given, Run DMC equity. I've given Salt and Pepper have equity. Eminem has equity. Fab Five Freddy, who took hip hop from uptown, downtown, has equity. Jonathan Mannion, the photographer. Roxanne Shante, Big Daddy Kane has equity. I mean, this is a really, really important company for many reasons. And it's a channel on Sirius XM, channel 43. But the thing that I think is just important is that hip hop, has fans. It has customers. It has people that love it. There are people who really, really, really enjoy and love what we do. And they deserve to be served like any other fan or customer and treated with that same respect. If I can see Paul McCartney on the cover of a magazine with Taylor Swift, why can't I see Ice Cube on the cover of a magazine with Meg Thee Stallion? I want this culture to be treated correctly. So that's why I do it. And that's why I'm passionate about it. And then we do that in different ways, right? Through content, touching that audience, through commerce, whether it be, fashion products, through experiences, right now virtual, but once in the post-COVID world, those experiences will be in real life. So, we rock it.
You talk about wanting to make the culture respected at the level among the broader world. In 2017, you became the first hip hop artist to receive a Kennedy Center Award. What did that mean to you?
I mean, it was incredible. It's an amazing accomplishment, because Kennedy Center honors are rarefied air. The biggest and most important artists in America get that award. And it's just that honor. And there's just no way around that. The beauty for me was not so much that it was me, although I'm really happy it was me, but it was being able to walk in the door like all of my fellow hip hop artists that, I came up with. I'm thinking about Cool G Rap, I'm thinking about the Fat Boys, and, rest in peace, Prince Marky D and Buff. I'm thinking about them like Cool Rock Ski, and then, even my, rivals, Kumo D and Cannabis. And I'm thinking about all those guys because when I get in there, that takes everybody in there. So it was an amazing feeling, man.
In what ways besides Rock the Bells, now you're on top. You've got everything that everybody wants, right? And I'm not saying you have everything in the world, your life's perfect. I'm just saying that you are a wealthy man, you have power, you have visibility. How do you invest those things, the responsibility of having those things, how do you invest them to make a difference in the world?
Well, there's a couple of things, right? First of all, I think when you say invest, when you talk about investing responsibility and your influence or power, so to speak, I think that's by making choices that are going to make the world a better place and by making choices that are going to lift up people. It's not about, there's nothing wrong with wanting a return, right? I'll give you an example. When the book about Elon Musk first came out, I guess it was about 5, 6, 7 years ago, that biography book? Mm-hmm. I think it says Tesla and SpaceX on the cover or something like that. Something like that. It's a book about Elon Musk. It was the first biography. When that came out, when I read that book, I liked his philosophy. So I said, you know what? I like the way this guy thinks. I like the things that this author is saying about him. I'm going to go out and invest in Tesla.
Good call.
But I didn't invest in Tesla because, I got a itchy trigger finger for money. And I said, you know what? I believe in this guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to put money in this, right? But remember, and I got that thinking about Warren Buffett when he says, look at management, right? What do you think of the management? How do you believe in them, et cetera? Now, obviously, I don't know him personally, but I like this book's take on him. So I said, you know what? Let's do that. I didn't know him personally then, right? So I did it. There you go.
Yeah, 9 years ago, I test drove a Porsche 911. I thought, well, this is cool, but I don't need this car. Then I got in a Tesla and I drove it and I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever driven. And I want to be a part of the change they're trying to create in the country. And what I wish I would have done is instead of buying the car, buy the stock and just let it ride.
Yeah, well, that comes with it. Look, you know what? You live and learn. But what I've learned to do is I've always I'm very curious. And so I pay attention. You have to just pay attention. In the military, they call it seeing around corners, right? I'm on NCISLA. So, you got to be able to try to see around corners a little bit. So that's what I try to do. So in terms of coming back to your question, my point is that when you go with things with your spirit in that regard, and when you go after things that you think are interesting, and when you do things from the heart, you work with people that you like and trust, and it has a way of working itself out. Every year, around Christmas time, I watch Christmas Carol. You never want to be Ebenezer Scrooge. You don't want to, squeeze the nickel until the eagle screams, right? Like you just gotta live a little bit. So that's kind of, how it's been for me.
There's a lot that's been going on in America in the last year. And when you go to Rock the Bells, you see that culture is presented and some of the literature and some of the commentary on what's happening politically and in society is presented there very subtly, as if to let the consumer say, oh, what is this? Let me find it. What would it mean to empower more Black people economically in the United States? And how do we do that?
Look, I think there are a lot of ways to look at this conversation, right? You got the Thomas Sowell School and you got the Noam Chomsky School, right? It's all about how you look at it. So for me, it's a combination of things. I think that being rational about the decisions that are made is an important piece, and that's really tough to do. So let me break it down in a way where I think that people can understand where I'm at with it. Look, I think that Blacks definitely need to be empowered, but I think that part of being empowered is empowering yourself too. That doesn't mean that there are no flaws in the system, because we know there are. And that doesn't mean that there's a little lag time, a little latency in the treatment of Black people within the system.
A few hundred years latency, yeah.
Yeah. I know, guys like Ben Shapiro, they want to talk you off the ledge as soon as you bring up systemic racism, and it exists. All right. Whether you want to say it's in the form of a human being as opposed to an agency. Okay, Ben, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, but it still exists in some form. There has to be a side effect of all of those years. You can't enslave people for hundreds of years and think there's zero side effects because you ended slavery. That's like me strapping you to your bed for a year and a half and then taking the straps off and saying, you're free now.
Go run a marathon.
Are you going to jump up and do a marathon?
Yeah.
When you hear people say that there's zero systemic, that's a problem. Now, the flip side of that is that I don't think it's wise to use that as an excuse to hold yourself back, to unintentionally hold yourself back, because you, in the back of your mind, that that's kind of a thing that's out there, right? Like, I want people to be hungry. You know what I mean? But I was taught a long time ago by a hustler. Actually, his name was Ronnie Bump. He was a big time, hustler in Queens. He told me, I was in a park. I was a little kid, maybe 14, 15. He said, let me tell you something. When you come in the park, come like this. Don't come like this. In other words, make a contribution. Don't come looking for a handout. So what I would say is, even with everything that's going on, I think it's up to us to think about how we can make a contribution to our kids, to our family, to our community, learn more, be more, dream more, do more. You know what I'm saying? What I don't want to see happen is I don't want Black people to make the mistake of demonizing all the whites or a certain segment of white society either. I don't think that that's the way to bring us together, because everybody is different and everybody thinks about it different. There are a lot of schools of thought. Some people feel like if you give a person a fish, you're not really helping them, right? Some people feel like if you teach them to fish, you're helping them. Some people think the guy's really starving and his ribs are touching. Maybe you should give him a fish and give him some sustenance and then teach him how to fish. So there's a lot of ways we can think about this thing. But, ultimately, I think that for Blacks to be more empowered in the country, you just have to, and for humans in general, you have to be more educated. You got to be more focused on your dreams, more focused on your goals. Then you go from there. And you got to really just go after it. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. Absolutely. One last question, because I know you got to go. And again, thank you so much for doing this. LL Cool J, how do you define success?
Success is setting your goal, whatever that may be, and achieving it. Being pleased with that result, feeling good about those results, whatever they may be. And that's the other thing I would caution people. Don't live your life comparing yourself to other people. Everybody's not going to be Jeff Bezos. That's okay. Everybody's not going to be Steph Curry. That's okay. Be who you are. You know what I mean? Be the best version of yourself. That's success, right? Maximizing your potential, your personal potential, and then helping the others around you to do the same. I think that's success.
That's awesome. Great place to leave it. Thank you, LL Cool J, so much for joining us. We will send people to rockthebells.com. And thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure, Paul. One love, baby.
Well, that was pretty cool. I mean, how do you not love that guy? How do you not love somebody who has seen incredible success for 36 years and still wakes up every day ready to get after it. I dig his motivation. I dig his positivity and his commitment to whatever it is he's doing. I also love the gratitude he's showing for the pioneers of hip hop and the tribute he's paying them through his work at Rock the Bells. Don't forget, the link to Rock the Bells is in the show notes, and the manifestation in the form of music exists on channel 43 on Sirius XM. Let's talk about some takeaways. I'm going to do these in the form of quotes I found from LL Cool J that the internet has attributed to him. I think they're pretty legitimate, but I always have to have a caveat. If you ever find a link on the internet, it's generally attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but not all of them are things that he said. Anyway, 3 takeaways in the form of quotes from LL Cool J. Everybody needs love. Only suckers are scared of love. Early in his career, LL was criticized by other more hardcore hip hop artists for the ballads he had on his record, including I Need Love, which is kind of a smooth, slow jam. He comes back with this. He's like, what are you talking about? Who doesn't love love, right? Only suckers are scared of love. If you don't like love, it's because you feel like you don't deserve it. You feel like on some level you are not worthy of love. And he comes back with this. Love is the greatest show of strength you can manifest in life. It takes courage to have love sometimes. It takes courage to admit that you need love. I think we'd all be better off not being suckers and embracing the love when it comes our way. You think the world would have enough of silly love songs, but here I go again. That's Paul McCartney. That's not LL Cool J. All right. Secondly, the only thing that keeps us from our dreams is fear. This times 1,000. Times 1,000. Fear is the thing that keeps us from sitting back and saying, who could I be if I could live a life doing anything I ever wanted that was the best manifestation of who I'm supposed to be? What would that look like? Think about it. There used to be these posters on the wall at Facebook that said, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And honestly, my answer to the question was, I think I'd go work someplace else. I didn't mean I wanted to go work at Twitter or Google. I meant I wanted to go work on me. I wanted to go figure out how I could bring myself to this planet in the most authentic and real way. And I've been doing that for the last 6 years, and it's not easy. It's hard. There's a lot of failure involved. And this fear of failure is the first thing you have to get over when you go down this road. No matter what the venture is, whether you're trying to learn a new instrument, a new language, start a business, you want to be a painter, you want to make video games, you know who I'm talking to right now. You got to get over this fear of failure. And guess what? The fear of failure isn't what you have to do to quit your job and go pursue that thing, no matter what it is. The fear of failure is a daily thing. It's every day when you wake up and you have this feeling in your gut like, oh shit, here goes another day. I'm not at the office drawing a paycheck. I don't have my insurance benefits. I don't know what's going to happen. I might fail. I might not be successful. I might look foolish. And that is an ongoing basis. When you embrace your dreams, fear is your companion and you have to embrace it. You have to extend the love that we're talking about in item number 1 to that fear. You have to embrace your fear and know that it's a good thing, that fear exists because you are doing what you were meant to do. Number 3, dreams don't have deadlines. Dude, I wish they did. I wish they did on some level. Either to start them, like you have to start it by a certain period of time, or that, if you don't achieve it right away, you can quit, On some level, that would be easier. It'd be an out, but that's not how it works, right? This week on Medium, I'm posting an essay. I have this Medium page. There's a link to it in the show notes also, where I write about success. This week's is all about the 10,000 hour rule. We talk about the 10,000 hour rule as if I'm going to put 10,000 hours into whatever this craft is that I want to be good at. And then success will find me. The world will think I'm splendid at whatever it is that I want to do, but that's not how it works. See, the thing is, you can't find out how good you are without putting in the 10,000 hours, but you can put in the 10,000 hours and still suck. You might even get very good, but that doesn't mean that the world will necessarily notice or appreciate what you're bringing to the table. And that's scary. And so you got to do it for the right reasons. Like LL said, he wasn't doing it for the money. He was doing it because his voice needed to be heard. There's something inside of you that needs to get out. Nurture that. Water that. fertilize it with fear, fertilize it with love, and you will find something special in and of yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this mission to explore the connection between money and happiness. It is my privilege to be there with you on this journey. I am grateful to many people along the way, especially to Mr. Mike Carano, who is the guy who motivated me into making this podcast in the first place. Mike, I love you, buddy. You're my friend. I'm glad to say that all these years after working in LA, we're working together more closely than ever before. Do what you do. Make me sound smart.